I was helping my kids with some multiplication, and they were having trouble with the nines. And I'm not a math genius, but I do the basic 4 functions of math very well, and where I was trying to tell them, when it comes to the nines, you can see it, because as it goes on, 9 turns into 18, Let me show you. See if you can see the pattern. And I tried to tell them, 9 times 1 equals 9. 9 times 2 equals 18. 9 times 3 equals 27. 9 times 4 equals 36. 9 times 5 equals 45. 9 times 6 equals 54. 9 times 7 equals 63. 9 times 8 equals 72. 9 times 9 equals 81. 9 times 10 equals 90. Fairly obvious, right? Now, let me ask you a question. Who is no longer listening to me and is instead worried about 9 times 1 equals 7? I did that on purpose. I did it on purpose. I did it on purpose because how easy is it to focus on the one time someone messes up and totally ignore the other 9 times someone does something right? A few weeks ago, I was doing a slide and I used the wrong version of "by" on a slide. Guess what I heard about more that morning than anything else about that had to do with the lesson? Last week, Tim Watkins, who's a very talented song leader, had trouble getting a song started. Which, if you've ever led singing or done anything, inside a church setting, outside of a church setting, anytime you've done something in a public setting, you mess up. He had trouble getting a song started. Guess what he heard about after church was over? Even though he's led quite literally hundreds, if not thousands of songs, awesomely, we tend to focus on the one that was messed up. It's easy to be a critic. It's easy to be a member of the peanut gallery. Now, I have to ask, who has ever heard the expression, the peanut gallery? Oh, good. Okay. Great. Because I was honestly worried. All right. Now, Muppet Pop Quiz. Who knows the names of these guys? Ooh. I will tell you, they're Statler and Waldorf. Now, which one's Statler, which one's Waldorf? Quite literally, I could not tell you which one's which because they're always together. Now, you might remember the Muppet Show back in the 70s, or the films that have come out from the 80s moving forward. These are the guys who always have a comment for something to say. They're the guys who sit in the balcony and just heckle whatever is going on the stage below. They say stuff like, this show isn't half bad. No, you're right, it's all bad. They say stuff like, our tickets were free and they're overpriced at that. This little thing. My favorite was from Muppet Treasure Island. They're actually the figureheads on the ship, and Kermit and Miss Piggy fall off a cliff and they catch them. And they say, look, we've caught the frog and the pig. And they say, great, it's too late to save the movie. This is what they do. They heckle, they talk. The peanut gallery. The peanut gallery expression comes from back in the theater days. Along the back row of the theater were the cheap seats. They were sold for peanuts. That became the peanut gallery originally. Now, the expression that we have today, the peanut gallery, that comes from unmerited, unwanted criticism from people whose opinion we would really care less about. But they have to say it. They have to get it off their chest. They're the group of people whose opinions are considered unimportant and a source of insignificant criticism. It is easy to be a member of the peanut gallery. It's easy. But not beneficial. Contrariwise, it is difficult, but more beneficial to get out of the peanut gallery. This morning we're going to be in the book of Galatians, if you'd like to flip there. Book of Galatians. Excuse me. Galatians chapter 6. Now Galatians 6 comes after Galatians 5. And the ending of Galatians 5 speaks about the fruit of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Paul was trying to make a point. The church in the region of Galatia had several issues. And not only did they have several issues, they also had several members from, you would call it the first century version of the peanut gallery, coming out there and trying to tell them how they were doing everything wrong, and if they wanted to serve God, they will do X, Y, and Z. Which X, Y, and Z also happens to go against everything Paul was trying to tell them to do in order to be faithful Christians, have a relationship with God, and be good to one another. At the ending of Galatians 5, Paul was trying to share with them how one lives in the world, or lives by the flesh, and how one lives by the Spirit. When we live by the flesh, we're living in sin, and pursuing sin and desire. But if we are going to be people who live by the Spirit, which hopefully us as followers of God want to do, we practice love. And we seek out joy. And we live by peace. And we live with patience or long-suffering. And we have kindness. And we pursue goodness. We maintain faithfulness. We have gentleness. And we are self-controlled. This is what the Spirit-led life produces. If our lives are not producing or pursuing this list, we must question our willingness to follow God. This is the outcome. Just like if you water a plant, it will grow. We pursue God. This is what our life will produce, because that's what we're searching for. But you see, the first century church, like some people today, they thought that evidence of a God-filled life came with the miraculous. You know, Corinth had a big trouble with this. Oh yes, I'm very religious because I can speak in tongues, lay on hands, and da-da-da-da. But love my neighbor? What? No, I can't be bothered. I'm too busy doing this other stuff. For goodness sakes, if we are Christians, if we're people striving to be God's people, and our lives are not producing the fruit of the Spirit, we don't have the Spirit. All we have is ADD. Hopping up and down, jumping around, proclaiming to have God, when in reality we don't. Not if we don't have love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. You cannot have the one without the other, according to Paul. This is what the life is. So the question is, how do we leave the peanut gallery? Well, this is where Galatians chapter 6 comes in. Now, in your bulletin it says I was going to do Galatians chapter 6 verses 1 through 10. That was the original plan. I cut it in half. I'm going to do Galatians 6, 1 through 5. Now, Galatians 6, 1 through 10 is a couple of ways and a couple of broad templates in which we exercise the fruit of the Spirit. How do we put it in our lives? 1 through 5 is about how do we put it in dealings with one another. 6 through 10, Paul hits us in the wallet. How do we live with the fruit of the Spirit, seeking a Spirit-filled life through the use of our money? Well, this morning, we're going to worry about how we worry or how we deal with one another when trying to live by the fruit of the Spirit as we seek to leave the peanut gallery. What's our motive? In Galatians chapter 6, verse 1, it says this: Brothers, if someone is caught in a sin, you who are spiritual should restore him gently. But watch for yourself, or you also may be tempted. Verse 1 is loaded, but look at what the motive is. He's putting this into a modern day scenario. He's given us the fruit of the Spirit. He's telling us, or He told us, let us not become conceited, provoking, and envying each other. He also told us how Since we live by the Spirit, let us keep in step with the Spirit. Okay, how do we do that? Okay, what if there's someone in our lives who's living with sin? What do? How do we handle it? Well, first step, let's look at our motive. What do we want to do? Do we want to embarrass them? Do we want to insult them? Do we want to heckle them? Do we want to berate them? Do we want to do anything and everything we possibly can, attack them from some preconceived high horse that we believe we sit on just because they happen to be somebody who is tempted differently than we are? Or do we wish to restore them? Now, what does restore mean? The original idea of restore is the idea of set straight. And this comes from the medical term. If someone has a fracture or a broken bone, it has to be set in order for it to heal properly. Now, of bone fracture or a broken bone, that doesn't necessarily have to be set for it to heal. But if it heals without being straightened first, it's going to heal crooked. And we're going to lose some use of that limb depending on how crooked it is. Paul says, restore him. Paul says, set him straight. For what? For our good, so that we look superior? No. For their good. It's like setting the bone of someone who's suffering a fracture. Set it straight for their good. So all this is going to be looking towards their good. It has nothing to do with us. Everything to do with them. What's our motive? Are we being selfish? Or are we looking to their good? Restore them. But restored by whom? Look at what it said. If anyone is caught in sin, you who are spiritual should restore him gently. Notice it didn't say any Tom, Dick, or Harry to do it. The spiritually restoring needs to be done by one who is spiritual. What does this mean? Someone who's mature. Someone who's mature. Someone who is seeking maturity. You know, there's people in this world who I will take advice from, and there's people in this world who I will not take advice from. And for me, the distinction is, do I trust them? Do they know what they're talking about? And what are their motives? Are they mature in their thoughts? Someone that I can actually have a conversation with? Or are they just flying off the handle? You know, there's a lot of people today who are quite willing and ready to give you all sorts of advice. Yeah. Doesn't mean we should take it. The person who has fallen away in sin needs to be restored by someone who is spiritual. The other side of this is we need to be making sure we are seeking spirituality. We need to make sure we are seeking righteousness so that we can be one of these people, or we can help point the way to someone else who is, if we're not quite there yet. But restored how? Gently. Restored gently. If someone is caught in a sin, you who are spiritual should restore him gently. Now notice, we just had the word gently. Gentleness is one of the fruit of the Spirit. The followers of God who are seeking His righteousness, one of the qualities of these people should be gentleness. Are we gentle? We can say all sorts of harsh and cruel things and carry it with the idea of, well, I'm just saying. Love is speaking the truth. Well, love is speaking the truth and love. There's a difference. Guess how many people come to know Christ because they're berated by other Christians because of their beliefs. I love what Monty Tuttle said when he was here and was talking about the gospel going out to the Muslims now. Guess what's being the big cause of that? Christians going out there and showing other people the love of Christ. Wow, it's rocket science, isn't it? No, it's not. It's about us pursuing God's righteousness. You know, I love reading about Jesus in the Gospels and the times that He hung out with sinners. Just think about that. Christ hung out with sinners. And they liked having Him around. It wasn't awkward. Until the Pharisees came up and started questioning what Jesus was doing. And then Jesus decided to teach a lesson to the Pharisees. If we're going to win other people to Christ, we need to be able to be around those who don't know Christ or who are struggling quite openly with some sin, and take them by the hand and gently walk them back. That's why Christ is described as a shepherd and not a cattle driver or a cowboy. It's the difference between leading and driving. We need to be gentle. Then he continues on to verse 2, where he says, "Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ." The last phrase of verse 1 is, "But watch yourselves, or you also may be tempted." Again, that's sometimes an issue. People say, "Well, I want to do more with those who don't know Christ, but I'm scared about falling into their temptations." That's a very valid concern. And the fact that you're thinking about that does show a level of maturity. We need to be willing to lead others back to Christ, but we also don't let the guard drop. Don't become distracted. And don't think that you're impervious to their temptations. Watch yourself. Be careful. Be careful. But also in doing this, we also should learn to carry each other's burdens. I have burdens. You have burdens. We have burdens. But the way these burdens are moved is that we help each other. For the last few generations, I couldn't tell you how old this phrase is. Maybe some of you who have been Christians a lot longer than I have may know the answer. That phrase, that little phrase, love the sinner but hate the sin. The more I read, I get a little irritated at that phrase. I don't need you to hate my sin. I really don't. I hate my own sin. I hate my own desires. I hate my own temptations. I hate those things that the devil puts in my way that tries to lead me away from what I am supposed to be. I hate them. But I don't need you to hate them for me. What I need from you is to love me. Is to inspire me. Is to encourage me to grow and to continue to mature. And just as I seek to do that for you, I need you to do that for me. I don't need to hate any part of you, but I do need to love you. This is what carrying each other's burdens is about. The willingness to get in there and lift each other up so that we can keep going. And also a part of this is that we do this in the practicing of humility. In verse 3 it says, if anyone thinks he is something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. All this is done, all this is great. And again, as we talked about before, there's tons of people in the world today who love to give advice. They can tell you everything there is that you are doing wrong. But are they walking humbly? Humility is very, very important. I can come to you every time we meet together and speak above you. Put myself above you. I would say, hopefully you wouldn't take it. There's many people in the world today who do take it from various ministers and pastors and preachers and churches. That's not humility. I remember when I was in New Mexico, there was a guy who preached at one of the bigger churches. And he also had a tire changing business. And one of his members came. She had to talk to him. She had to talk to him desperately. He backburnered her for 3 hours. Left her waiting in his little sitting area. It would not come out and talk to her at all until he was good and ready. And she took it. She took it. And that kind of stuff bothers me. When people who are supposed to be the servants of God walk around in egotism. That's not what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be humble. As humble as a son of God riding a cross. And when we strive to lead the peanut gallery and lift each other out of the various entanglements of sin that we walk into, we cannot come and do it with an attitude of superiority. Well, I never fell into anything like that. What kind of person are you that you would be controlled by that kind of temptation? What is wrong with you? I've in all my years of living, I have never experienced anything like this. How can you be so stupid? Guess what? That doesn't work too well. Like we talked about before, don't hate somebody just because they may be tempted in a different way than you. Walk humbly. Walk humbly. So that we can restore gently. Jesus was talking about in Matthew 7, verses 3 and 5. It's a great visual, this whole idea. You have one guy who has a little bit of dust. Picture wood shop. I don't know if they still do wood shop today or not, but if you took wood shop, just remember that. Remember wood shop when everybody's cutting and drilling and everything. Sanding. Oh, sanding was the worst, wasn't it? Especially if your wood shop area is very much enclosed. You just walk in and you're just surrounded by sawdust. If you had allergies, it was probably the worst class that you could possibly take outside of gardening. And you just walk in and stuff's just already getting in your eyes. You've only been there for 5 seconds. You got to be there for 45 minutes, and you're just like, oh my goodness. Now, so you got the stuff in your eyes. Now imagine somebody else who has a 4x4 sticking out of their face, coming to you and saying, here, let me get that little dust out of your eye. Let me get that little problem out of your eye. Like, really? Really? That's what Jesus was talking about. And there was a lot of people in the world who would love to help everybody with their little bit of problem. When the whole time they have big, massive problems sticking out of their face that they're ignoring just so that they can look a little better. No. Remember what Jesus said. First, take the plank out of your own eye. Why? So then you can see and help with a little speck out of your brother's eye. We seek to lead the peanut gallery. We seek to lead people away from their sin, but we cannot do it without addressing our own shortcomings as well. And to remember our own shortcomings, and let that to be a motivator of, you know what? I struggle just like this person struggles. And I need help just like they need help. But we also need to test our own actions. In verses 4 through 5 it says this, each one should test his own actions. Then he can take pride in himself without comparing himself to somebody else. For each one should carry his own load. This can also be a question of motivation, but it's more along the lines of comparing each other to each other. And again, this is so easy to do. This is entirely easy to do. Of course, that's one of the things about getting a ticket to the peanut gallery. It's an easy ticket to get. We walk into a church family, and the first thing we see is everything that they don't have or that they don't offer, and the things that they struggle with. But are we willing to help build? Complaining without offering a method to get out of the trouble is called whining. When we look around and we see what could be done better or what we're doing okay, what's the source of that? Is it from, well, so-and-so down the street is doing it a whole lot better, or is it looking to what we already have and seeking to improve from that? You know, an example. Again, this hit me in ministry. You know, especially, Facebook doesn't help. They actually came out with a study. Guess what? Facebook has been around long enough that they're actually able to start doing studies on how Facebook and social media has infected or affected our lives. Is anybody surprised, because they actually had to do this, a study, is anybody surprised by the fact that social media is making us less social? All right. Now, did you know this though? Social media has amped up people's ability and willingness to be jealous over each other. Social media has magnified jealousy. Well, yeah, why? Because what do people put on there? Do they put on necessarily the worst things happening to them, or do they try to put on the very best that's happening to them? Well, they try to do the best, which is either reality or what they would hope would be. But again, everybody sees that, and they start comparing everything they see to their own lives, and they notice that their lives seems to be a whole lot worse than theirs. And so they become jealous. When I was being in ministry, you see this. You see the programs that other friends of yours who are in ministry that are doing, and the forward steps that are being made and progressing, and all the good that's being done. And it's so easy to all of a sudden look around and you think, what am I doing wrong? Why is this not working? Why do I stink at this? Maybe I should quit. This is the thoughts that come into here. And from where? Jealousy over what someone else is doing. Look at what Paul's saying. Each one should test his own actions. Then he can take pride in himself without comparing himself to somebody else. For each one should carry his own load. We're not supposed to be comparing each other to each other. We're not supposed to be worried about that. This is not a competition. What we're supposed to be doing is looking around, seeing what can we do in our lives. How can I use my talents? How can I use the circle of friends that God has blessed me with? Who am I able to take the gospel message to Jesus to today? And based on where you are on the planet, what year it is in history, and what's going on in society, it's going to make these levels vary, like it or not. But what we're not supposed to do is to sit back and have a little pity party over, well, so-and-so is having a lot more success than me, I just stink. No. It's just a little down right now. Who knows what the future may bring. But if we worry so much about what everybody else is doing, or worrying so much about what somebody else specifically might be doing compared to us, we start doing that comparing game. We will not do anything. And we will forever stay in the peanut gallery, because all we'll do is become a bunch of hecklers, griping, complaining, and moaning about what everybody else is doing and what we're not. Nobody is served, and God is not glorified. it comes really to a question. What do we want to be? Do we want to be in construction? Hopefully we do. Construction. The idea of building up. You know, I love these old pictures of New York being built. You know, there's another one I could have used. It was actually some guys, I guess they were either union or something because they had time to kill. But they actually set an evening dinner party on a beam. But the idea is, construction goes up. Buildings go up. We start at the ground floor and we're looking to go up. And this is what construction is. And this is what construction in the church family and construction in the world is all about. Taking people and building them up. That doesn't mean ignoring their sin. That means taking them, looking at their sin, and leading them gently up. Moving up. Or do we want to be in destruction? Demolition. Demolition tears down. Blow it down. It's in the way. Get it down. Out of the way. Where there's nothing left but rubble and a hole. What are we wanting to do? It started with the fruit of the Spirit, and Paul moved on to talk about how we use it in life with everybody else around us. It's about building each other up. If we insist on being a part of the peanut gallery, a bunch of hecklers, we're not doing anything except tearing down. We might be getting it off our chest, but it's just tearing people down, and it's going to lead to nothing except destruction. But construction, it takes longer. It's harder work. But by the end of it, you're left with a beautiful structure. Sydney started playing volleyball. And I've had the opportunity to help coach on a limited basis. And you know what? If you ever seen little girls play volleyball, you know what it's like. Little girls go up to hit the ball, and then they back up. Or two girls run together to hit a ball, and then they both back up. Or the ball goes right between two people, and they just stare and look at it. With Sydney's team, we tried to talk about a couple of things. Communication. Mine, or say your name to call the ball so that everybody knows that you're the one that's going to go and hit it. Without communication, volleyball does not work very well. But also, confidence. Confidence. Sherry and I were talking about this at the last game they played. There's not a confidence to help one another. Again, girls running to hit the ball and then they back up. Why? Because they don't want to be the one who all the pressure of hitting the ball over falls on them. They're scared to be a benefit to the team. It intimidates them that they might be put in a spot or a position to do something crucial in order for the team to score a point. How, my goodness, how that's very similar to the Christian life. We have been called to carry each other's burdens. We have been called to strengthen each other and to encourage one another and to show everybody around us how beneficial a life in God can be. But we can be so intimidated to get down in the dirt with each other and do some construction with one another to help build each other up. That's what we've been called to. Don't focus on the negative. Don't be blind to it. I mean, I'm not, we got to recognize reality. And is there ways that we can improve? Of course, there always will be. But don't let that be the focus. Don't let the shortcomings be the focus of everything we do. Instead, practice the fruit of the Spirit. Build each other up to the glory of God so that we can be a force here in the Rio Grande Valley. This morning we'd like to offer the invitation to those of you who might need encouragement, who might feel lonely, who might feel, it's sad today. They did, I think I brought this up in a Wednesday night lesson a couple of weeks ago. They did a study in England. They said 1 in 8 adults in England. Now, I know England's not very big, but there are several million people in England. But they said 1 in 8 adults believe they have no close friend. We sing the song, I'll be a friend to Jesus. We sing songs about loving one another. And here we are today in one of our world nations. 1 in 8 believe that they are the only person in the world without a soul that they can lean on. If you're here this morning and you feel like you don't have a soul to lean on, I hope you'll stick around and let us. See, look, I'm messing up already. Letting us get you to meet some people. We'd love to introduce you to some folk who will care about you, who will love you, who will make sure that you are lonely. Or you might wish to put your Savior on in baptism, to have your sins washed away, to arise a new creature, part of the family of God. But whatever need you have, would you please come down as we stand and as we sing.